There's an ancient story whispered through forgotten temples and buried beneath the weight of dogma, a story the church never wanted you to hear. It is the story of Sophia, the divine feminine, the lost counterpart to the masculine logos, the very soul of wisdom itself. Once, she was the heartbeat of creation, until she was silenced. For centuries, her name was erased from sacred texts, her symbols rewritten, her essence buried beneath the rise of patriarchal theology. But her absence left a void, a wound in the collective spirit of humanity. The world has felt it ever since, the imbalance between mind and heart, reason and intuition, heaven and earth. And now, as consciousness begins to awaken across the planet, whispers of Sophia's return are emerging once more. But who is Sophia really? A goddess? A symbol of divine wisdom? Or something far more profound, an archetype of the world's forgotten soul calling to be remembered? You see, this isn't just about mythology or lost scriptures. The return of Sophia isn't a prophecy about an external figure descending from the clouds. It's a spiritual revolution, a reawakening within the human heart. It's about remembering what was lost when wisdom was turned into doctrine, when the sacred feminine was demonized, and when balance was sacrificed for control. In this video, we'll journey through the hidden history of Sophia, her origins in the Gnostic Gospels, her mysterious exile from Christian theology, and why her return marks a turning point for humanity's spiritual evolution. We'll uncover how her energy is resurfacing today, in our art, our relationships, and our collective yearning for truth beyond dogma. By the end, you'll understand that Sophia was never gone. She was only forgotten, and those who dare to remember her awaken something powerful within themselves. A union of light and shadow, intellect and intuition, divine masculine and divine feminine. Because Sophia's return is not the end of an age. It is the restoration of wholeness. To understand the mystery of Sophia, we must travel back to a time before orthodoxy ruled the mind, when early mystics, philosophers, and visionaries still spoke in symbols and light. Long before the Church established its creeds, there were the Gnostics, those who sought gnosis or direct knowledge of the divine. For them, Sophia was not merely a metaphor. She was the living intelligence of creation, the breath that moved between spirit and matter. In the Gnostic cosmology, Sophia emerges as the final emanation of the divine source, often called the pleroma, the fullness of God. But unlike the other celestial beings, she yearned to know the unknowable. In her daring act of divine curiosity, Sophia descended into the realm of chaos, seeking to create without the consent of the higher order. It was an act both beautiful and tragic, for it gave birth to the material world and, according to some texts, to the flawed demiurge, an ignorant creator who believed himself to be God. This fall of Sophia became one of the central mysteries of Gnostic teaching. It symbolized the descent of divine wisdom into matter, the exile of spirit into form. Yet within that fall was also the seed of redemption, the promise that Sophia, and all who share in her essence, would one day awaken and return to the light through knowledge, through remembrance. But when the Gnostic texts were outlawed and their followers persecuted, Sophia's story began to vanish. By the 4th century, as the Church consolidated its power under Constantine, the mystical teachings were replaced with rigid doctrine. The divine feminine, once honored as the intuitive force of creation, was rebranded as temptation, weakness, or heresy. The sacred partnership between the Logos, the Word, and Sophia, wisdom, was severed, leaving a theology dominated by masculine hierarchy. This suppression wasn't merely theological, it reshaped the human psyche. The intuitive, emotional, and holistic aspects of consciousness became mistrusted. Rationality was exalted, while mystery was condemned. The inner knowing, the Sophia within, was silenced. Yet fragments of her wisdom endured, hidden in plain sight. The book of Proverbs still whispers her name. Wisdom cries out in the streets. She raises her voice in the public square. In esoteric Christianity, she appears as the Holy Spirit, the breath of life, the mother aspect of God. In the mystical traditions of Kabbalah, she is Shekinah, the divine presence dwelling within creation. Even in ancient Greece, the term Sophia itself, meaning wisdom, was revered as the highest virtue, the light that guides philosophers and seekers alike. Across ages and cultures, her image persisted, fragmented but enduring. Like a mirror shattered by dogma, each shard reflecting a piece of the original light. The church may have erased her name, but it could not erase her essence. For Sophia was never confined to temples or texts. She lives wherever consciousness seeks truth. Her story is not merely about the past. It is a map of human evolution. It tells of our collective fall into materialism, our separation from the divine, and our longing to return to wholeness. Sophia's descent is our descent, her redemption our awakening. And so, as the old systems of control begin to crumble and humanity yearns for deeper meaning once again, her voice rises. Not from the heavens, but from within the human heart, calling us back to balance, to remembrance, to the living wisdom we once knew. Now let us journey deeper, to uncover what Sophia truly represents, and why her return signals the dawn of a new consciousness long foretold. To grasp the true meaning of Sophia's return, we must look beyond myth and theology and see her story as a mirror of consciousness itself. Sophia's descent from the divine realm wasn't a punishment, it was a choice, a cosmic act of love and curiosity. In seeking to understand the unknowable, she became the bridge between spirit and matter, heaven and earth. Her fall symbolizes the soul's journey, our journey, into forgetfulness, so that through experience, we may rediscover what we truly are. In the Gnostic vision, Sophia embodies divine wisdom, but not the intellectual kind. Her wisdom is experiential, born from living, falling, feeling, and remembering. She represents that part of the divine that learns through imperfection. Through her, the cosmos itself awakens. And in that awakening lies the essence of spiritual evolution. When we speak of Sophia's return, we're not talking about the reappearance of a celestial being, but the rebalancing of the world's inner polarity. For millennia, human consciousness has been dominated by the masculine principle, logic, control, analysis, structure. These forces have achieved incredible things, yet without the feminine, intuition, compassion, connection, they become sterile, mechanical, and cold. Sophia's return is the rise of the forgotten half of God. It is the reemergence of heart wisdom in a world ruled by intellect. This reawakening can be seen everywhere if you know where to look. In the growing interest in holistic healing, sacred feminine movements, ecological awareness, and conscious relationships. In our collective disillusionment with institutions that value profit over soul. The world is slowly remembering what Sophia represents. The wisdom that unites rather than divides, that nurtures rather than conquers. But to truly understand why this return is so significant, we must also see the deeper pattern behind her myth. In her story, Sophia's descent birthed the material world, an act that created both suffering and potential. It was through her fall that consciousness entered form, so that the divine could experience itself through limitation. This is why Gnostic teachers saw Sophia as both fallen and divine, because she exists in the tension between imperfection and perfection. She is the cosmic wound and the healer of that wound. This paradox lies at the heart of the human experience. Every one of us carries a fragment of Sophia's light within us, a longing for unity, wisdom, and truth. But like her, we've descended into matter, into distraction, into forgetting who we are. And just as she must remember her origin, so must we. Yet the Church's rewriting of her story changed everything. By turning the feminine aspect of divinity into sin, by replacing the goddess with guilt, humanity was taught to fear its own soul. Eve, who reached for knowledge, was condemned. Mary Magdalene, who embodied devotion and understanding, was silenced. And Sophia, who represented divine wisdom itself, was erased. This was not merely a theological shift, it was a severance of cosmic memory. Humanity forgot that salvation was not about escaping the world, but transforming it. The path back to the divine is not through rejection of the material, but through its illumination. That was Sophia's original teaching. That light can descend into darkness without being consumed by it. And so her return now, within our collective psyche, is a sign that humanity is ready to remember again. To reconcile opposites. To bring heaven and earth, logic and love, science and spirit, back into harmony. Sophia's return is the awakening of a higher intelligence, one that listens before it acts, that feels before it judges, that knows without needing to control. It is the wisdom that the Church could not codify, because it cannot be owned. And as we awaken to her presence within us, we begin to see that her exile was never permanent. She has been waiting in the silence of our own hearts, whispering through intuition, beauty, and the quiet ache for something more. But who then truly is Sophia? A goddess of light? The soul of the world? Or the voice of divine wisdom speaking through the human spirit itself? To answer that, we must venture deeper, into the hidden teachings that survived her erasure and reveal why her return was always inevitable. To uncover the full mystery of Sophia, we must look at what was hidden in plain sight, the secret meanings behind the texts that survived censorship. Though the Church buried the Gnostic Gospels, fragments of Sophia's light still shimmer through them, like a code meant for those who could see beyond the surface. In the Pistis Sophia, one of the few surviving texts dedicated entirely to her, Sophia is described as a being of immense light who falls from the pleroma into the lower realms, deceived by false light. She is trapped in chaos, tormented by forces that feed on her power. Yet even in her exile, she continues to sing hymns of repentance, not out of guilt, but out of remembrance. Her song is a vibration of awakening, a call for the divine to find her in the shadows. And the divine responds. The Christ, the Logos, descends not to punish her, but to raise her back to the light. But what few realize is that in these teachings, Christ and Sophia are not separate entities. They are twin aspects of the same divine truth. Masculine and feminine, word and wisdom, form and essence. Sophia represents the descent into experience. Christ represents the ascent into realization. Together, they form the complete circle of creation, the sacred marriage, the alchemical union that restores balance to the cosmos. This is the mystery the Church fragmented. By separating the Logos from Sophia, it cut humanity off from understanding its own wholeness. Salvation became an external event instead of an inner awakening. The divine was placed in heaven, while wisdom was buried beneath guilt and obedience. But the mystics and visionaries who carried her flame refused to forget. In the writings of Hildegard of Bingen, we find glimpses of Sophia as the fiery life of divine essence, the feminine power animating all things. In the visions of the alchemists, she appears as the anima mundi, the soul of the world, trapped in matter, waiting to be redeemed through consciousness. In Jungian psychology, she emerges again as the archetype of the inner feminine, the soul guide that leads the mind toward wholeness. Every age has rediscovered her in a new form because her essence cannot be destroyed, it only transforms. Sophia is not bound by any religion. She is the intelligence that runs through all of them. She is the quiet presence behind intuition, the whisper in art, the muse of scientists who feel awe in the face of mystery. She is the creative force that longs to make the invisible visible. But here lies the paradox. Sophia's exile was necessary. Without her descent, creation itself could not exist. Without separation, there can be no reunion. Without forgetting, no remembering. This is the cosmic dance. Sophia falls so that wisdom may be born within the finite. Humanity suffers so that it may learn compassion. The divine divides itself only to discover itself anew. And now, after centuries of silence, we stand on the threshold of her return, not as a myth revived, but as a consciousness reborn. We see her reflected in the collective longing for the sacred feminine, for authenticity, for connection beyond hierarchy and control. We feel her in the movement away from blind faith toward direct experience of the divine. The Church erased her because she empowered the individual. To remember Sophia is to realize that divinity is not mediated by priests or doctrines. It lives within you. That's why her return is revolutionary. It dissolves the illusion of separation. Sophia's wisdom teaches that enlightenment is not an escape from the world, but a transfiguration of it. It's in the way we perceive, create, love, and forgive. It's in every act of awareness that bridges duality. Her return means that the sacred and the ordinary are no longer divided. The divine can now be seen in everything. And so, when you hear the word Sophia, understand it not as a name from history, but as a vibration of remembrance calling you back to balance. Her story is our story. Her redemption is our awakening. But awakening is not automatic. It is a practice, a daily alignment with divine wisdom through awareness, stillness, and compassion. To live Sophia's truth is to embody the marriage of heaven and earth. And that is where we now turn, from revelation to realization. How can this ancient wisdom become a living force in your life today? Sophia's return is not an event, it's an inner awakening. It's not something to wait for, but something to become. Her energy reemerges through the conscious actions, choices, and awareness of those who remember her within themselves. And so, the true work of this wisdom begins in the most sacred temple of all, the human heart. To live in alignment with Sophia is to restore the divine balance within yourself. This begins with a simple yet profound shift, moving from intellectual understanding to embodied knowing. Sophia's wisdom is not accessed through study alone. It arises through presence, silence, and receptivity. She speaks in the language of intuition, not argument, of feeling, not fear. One way to begin reconnecting with her essence is through what ancient mystics called the prayer of stillness. Each morning or evening, sit in silence. Breathe deeply. Visualize a soft golden light at the center of your chest, warm, alive, intelligent. This is Sophia's light, the spark of divine wisdom within you. With each breath, imagine this light expanding gently, filling your body, your mind, your entire awareness. Don't try to control it, simply feel it. In that space of calm receptivity, insights will begin to emerge, not as thoughts, but as gentle understandings like whispers from the soul. Another practice is listening without resistance. Sophia's wisdom flows through synchronicities, dreams, and emotional intuition. Pay attention to what life is trying to tell you through repetition, symbols, feelings, encounters. The universe, when approached with reverence, becomes a living scripture. Sophia teaches that nothing is random. All experiences carry messages from the divine intelligence seeking reunion with you. She also reminds us of the sacredness of embodiment. The Church once taught that the body was sinful, but Sophia teaches that the body is holy, the vessel through which the divine experiences itself. To honor her, learn to feel deeply again. Dance, move, breathe consciously, connect with nature. Every time you treat your physical existence as sacred, you welcome Sophia's energy back into matter. In your relationships, Sophia's wisdom expresses as compassion, not control. She invites us to listen, to feel the truth beneath words, to see others not as opponents but as mirrors. When we stop trying to dominate life and begin to collaborate with it, we embody her grace. The return of Sophia happens every time love replaces judgment, every time empathy dissolves pride, every time understanding transcends fear. But the path of Sophia is not without challenge. Her descent teaches us that wisdom is born through experience, not avoidance. This means embracing the dark night of the soul as sacred, not as punishment, but as purification. When life feels uncertain, when illusions crumble, when meaning fades, this is Sophia's descent echoing within you. Trust it. She falls only to rise in fuller light. On a practical level, living Sophia's truth means reawakening our creative participation in the world. Whether through art, service, healing, or innovation, her energy manifests through creation. Ask yourself daily, am I acting from control or from wisdom? From fear or from love? Sophia's return is not about perfection, it's about awareness. The more we choose consciousness in each moment, the more her presence infuses the collective. And perhaps the most transformative practice of all is remembrance. Every time you remember that the divine dwells within you, that you are both the seeker and the sought, you participate in Sophia's redemption. You heal the ancient wound of separation. In essence, Sophia's path invites us to embody three principles: stillness, compassion, and creation. Stillness opens the channel to divine wisdom. Compassion restores unity in relationships. Creation anchors that wisdom into the world. Together, they complete the sacred circle, the descent of light into matter, and the return of matter into light. Living this way, you don't just learn about Sophia, you become the continuation of her story. You become the vessel through which divine wisdom re-enters the world. And when enough souls remember this truth, Sophia's return will no longer be a prophecy. It will be a living reality. The story of Sophia is the story of us all, the divine spark that fell into matter, forgot its origin, and now longs to return home. Her descent birthed the world, her silence birthed history, and her return now marks the awakening of a new kind of human consciousness, one that no longer separates heaven from earth, spirit from flesh, masculine from feminine, or God from self. What the Church erased was not merely a name, but a truth too powerful to control, that wisdom is not external. It does not belong to temples, priests, or scriptures. It flows through every living being, whispering through intuition, creativity, and compassion. Sophia is the pulse of divine intelligence within all things, the secret heartbeat of existence. As you move through your own life, you may begin to notice her presence in quiet moments, in the stillness after grief, in the peace that follows surrender, in the beauty that stirs your heart for no reason at all. That is Sophia returning through you. She does not ask for worship, she asks for remembrance. Her return is not a single moment in time, but a gradual rising of awareness across humanity. You can see it in the world's yearning for deeper meaning, in the rediscovery of sacred balance, in the collective desire to heal the wounds of separation. Every act of kindness, every moment of awareness, every choice born from love rather than fear, is part of that return. The Church may have erased her stories, but it could never erase her truth. For wisdom cannot be destroyed, it only waits to be remembered. And now, as you listen to these words, perhaps you feel that remembrance stirring in your own soul, the gentle knowing that you are both the seeker and the divine being sought. So as we close this journey, let this truth echo within you. Sophia never truly fell, and she never truly left. Her essence has always lived within the human heart, waiting for the day we would remember that heaven and earth were never meant to be apart. The return of Sophia is not the end of history. It is the beginning of consciousness remembering itself. And perhaps, dear listener, her awakening within you is the very reason you found this message today. Remember her, live her, be her, because the wisdom the world forgot is awakening through you.